It is phenomenal for college football that TCU is playing for this national title. I said it a little bit earlier, but it's been the same boys club for 8 years. Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Georgia, whatever. Now, TCU, a team that doesn't have a defense that makes you go, wow. A team that doesn't have number one draft picks running around. A team that doesn't recruit to the level that these other teams. They kicked the fucking door down, and they said, this is a democratic sport. You got to beat us on the field, and you can't do it. I love the fact that TCU is here. As much as I have doubted them in the path getting here, as much as I have said, I don't think they can win this game. I don't think they can win this game. The doubt doesn't matter. And the fact that they are giving hope to the rest of the country, because there's a lot more TCUs than there are Ohio States and Alabamas. I love that they're here. Number 3, quickly. Max Duggan has nuts the size of basketballs.
I love him.
When the guy was 14 or 29 today, his stats weren't that great. When the play mattered, and Max Duggan mattered, and he was better than everybody else. When Michigan was making a run the fourth quarter, and he bought time, and he rolled out to the right, and he threw it to Johnston, who shook one tackle and took it to the house. You can't beat Max Duggan. Well, you can't beat him. You can get him down. A lot like Stetson, I guess, although Duggan kind of had control the whole time. But Duggan has nuts the size of basketballs, and if you need 3 yards, all he says is you need 3 yards. Whether he runs it, whether he throws it, he's going to get the fucking 3 yards. Those are my 3 takes. Casey, you talk a little bit.
Well, never forget that we are a Max Duggan podcast. I would like everybody that's listening and watching to remember that he was our quarterback this year. So shout out him. I think that the biggest thing, you made a lot of great points that I could add on to, but I don't want to be repetitive. When we previewed this game, and outside the fact that I said, I know our interview with Max Duggan was swaying me and I was kind of joking, but one of the things that we talked about and that I mentioned was that I believe that if TCU could get the explosive plays that they've had throughout this season, that they would be able to hang in with Michigan. Mm-hmm. I still thought Michigan was going to win, but I thought it was going to be a close game. The fact that they were able to do that, and we saw that Michigan would fall apart time after time with those explosive plays, it's like, of course that was going to happen. We had the blueprint laid out in front of us. Yes, TCU lost to Kansas State, who I also said I thought was just a lesser version of Michigan. But TCU got those explosive plays we saw them do throughout the entire season. And that not only kept them in the game, it helped them win the game. And then on the flip side, they were able to put pressure on JJ McCarthy that Ohio State was not able to do for whatever reason in that game. I mean, Donovan Edwards still had like 120 yards. So it's not like they completely stifled him, but they were able to make JJ McCarthy make some decisions that he hadn't had to make throughout the year. And JJ still played well. I'm not taking anything away from him. But TCU did every little thing they needed to do to have that, quote, perfect game. And they did it well. And they didn't need the talent that Michigan had. They didn't need the talent that Georgia had or Ohio State had today. They just needed to execute their game plan. And that's exactly what they did. And they have that magic. I understand they lost a Big 12 championship. What the fuck ever. I had people tweeting at me like, well, ask Kansas State how they feel. Who the fuck cares what Kansas State feels? They're sitting on the couch. TCU's playing for the national championship. And you had to get on the bandwagon at some point. I did it much earlier than you, but much later than Jack. Everybody had a point in the season where you had to get on it. Well, here we are, folks. They're playing in the national championship, regardless of if they're the 4th most talented team in the college football playoff.
Let me tell you where I misread the game. I looked at statistically Michigan top 10 defense, top 20 defense, TCU number 75 defense, and said, oh, there's a difference right there. The Michigan's defense is going to make TCU's offense sweat, and TCU's defense can't do it to them. Either the stats are just absolutely wrong because Michigan played in a conference that doesn't feature any explosive offenses. They only had to beat Ohio State as far as explosive offenses. They beat, you're talking about Illinois and Indiana and Rutgers. That's not an offensive juggernaut conference. Don't worry about the strength of the conference. Offensively, Michigan didn't have to do all that much. Now, today, they had to defend I know you said Marvin Harrison Jr. might be the best receiver. Quentin Johnston might be the best receiver in the country. They had to defend him. They had to defend Max Duggan. And Michigan's defense was a colossal disappointment today. Whether they were overrated or overvalued, or whether TCU is just that fucking good on offense, Michigan's defense was an atrocity in this game, Jack.
No, I keep going back to the fact we got a lot of shit about 3 weeks, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago when we did that podcast where we rated the first year coaches,
Mhm.
and you gave Casey, you were traveling, but
I listened to it.
yeah, and I think you agreed with us on the Oklahoma rating.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
You gave Venables a D, I gave him an F. Sonny Dykes came in to TCU in his first year.
Yeah.
And he's in the national championship. TCU, they went 5-7 last year. And it's like the same team. I mean, it's like, oh, you could say Gary Patterson recruited them, but it's like, it's insane. You brought up the acres, you brought up the graphic. It's like, I mean, I play along with it on Twitter and whatnot. No, I didn't see this coming. I thought they'd go 8-4, 9-3. Like, I thought they were a good team. Max Duggan was a backup coming into to this year. It's insane. This is really like, this is college basketball stuff where it's like this guy you've never heard of. And that's what makes college basketball great. I love college basketball, but we don't get this in college football. And this is what, like, a lot of people are like, fraud this, fraud that. I think we need to, even if they lose 42-14, this was like, I think, really special. Michigan is just like, you had every opportunity to win, but you just like shot yourself in the foot. JJ, I think you texted me, Brandon, about like, he's very hesitant. There's something, and maybe he'll just get out of that. He's still young, and this was only his first year playing or starting. And I thought he after that second pick six, he could have like just given up. And he went out there, went down the field, scored. So I think JJ is going to be fine.
Let's get to Michigan and JJ in a second. I want to say one more thing about TCU. There's a big, gigantic difference in making the college football playoff and making the college football playoff national championship game.
Gigantic difference.
If you look at the last 8 years, you've seen Washington and Michigan State, and you've seen Notre Dame, and you've seen Oklahoma, and you've seen last year Cincinnati. They all made the playoff, and that's great. But when they got there, the eliteness of the other talent they played overwhelmed them, beat them, and it was a good story. That's it. TCU showed up to the playoff and beat a team who, by every right, is more talented than them, had more reason to be here than them, had a better chance to win a national title than them. There's a gigantic, cataclysmic opening between making the playoff and winning a game and going to the fucking title game, and that's what TCU did.